Well, hello and welcome to Stockbox. We are, of course, here live in Manhattan, in New York, at the OTC markets for the opening bell in a few moments' time, where Guardian Metal Resources' CEO Oliver Friesen will be counting down and ringing that opening bell, marking the occasion that Guardian Metal shares are trading in North America. But before we cover that momentous event for the company, I'm joined by Jason Peltrowicz, the Executive VP of Corporate Services for the OTC. Thank you very much for joining me. How are you?
Thanks for having me. Thanks for being here. It's an exciting day.
It's a very exciting day, isn't it? And I mean, here we are on the OTC. You can see downtown. Well, where is that actually?
That's New Jersey.
That's
New Jersey City. But if you look that way, you can see the Statue of Liberty.
We can see the Statue of Liberty. Yes, I've got a good view of the Statue of Liberty. Yeah, but it's really nice to be here. First time that Stockbox and myself are here at the OTC markets. And first of all, I just want to get a bit of an idea about the OTC markets concept, really, and this idea of sort of dual listings and how your market differs from, let's say, Wall Street or the NASDAQ.
Right. So we're different than NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange, but in fact, we are the largest stock market in the U.S. for non-U.S. equities. What makes us different is that we are primarily a secondary market for companies that are listed what we call locally, right? So you have companies that are listed in the UK and Germany and Switzerland and Austria. They're already making their disclosure available and doing all the things that's required locally for them. But through an SEC, what's called foreign private issuer exemption, we give them the ability to have a U.S. market, U.S. ticker that trades in U.S. dollars, but utilizing that home market disclosure. Okay. So that saves them from having to be SEC reporting, Sarbanes-Oxley compliant, reconciling to U.S. GAAP. So you get all the benefits of making your shares available to the broadest North American audience, again, in a way that's much more costly, efficient, and less risky than having a traditional New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ dual listing.
And do you and the companies that then list with the OTC markets, do they see increased trading volumes once they've got that sort of dual listing and access for the US investors to take part in buying shares?
They absolutely do. And in fact, it's common misperception that just because you're listed in London, let's say, that the broadest U.S. investor base can just access you in London. Most U.S. investors don't have the ability to go direct into London. So by opening up your trading through OTC markets here in the U.S., you're reaching all of that retail, those smaller institutions, the family offices that don't have the infrastructure to go into London. So we have companies that when they come here, immediately see increases of 7, 10, 20% because you're opening up to that North American audience that loves the story, that is able to trade the peers, but really just never had the opportunity to invest in those companies.
Do you find there's a lot of interest then from US investors to have access to stocks in Europe and the UK?
Absolutely. And the UK specifically, as I'm sure you've reported, has seen a discount to their US peers, right? And so US investors that see the US market and US equities being really frothy are looking for that opportunity to invest in that discount. The elections recently see a little bit more continuity in the UK specifically, and so really wanting to be able to access those. And then we see it sectoral as well. So the US investor loves resources, loves gold, and so they want those types of equities and that story from around the world. But again, they need to be able to buy it during U.S. market hours in U.S. dollars in a security that's making its disclosure and information available here.
Well, that's a really interesting point you said there about American investors loving the resources, the gold stocks, for example, because I think in the UK there's a little bit of a disconnect from the investors into those sectors, just because the UK doesn't really have much of that actually going on in country, whereas Canada, North America, there's a lot of that going on. And you have a lot more tax incentives as well, I think, for investors over here as well to invest. So there's a lot of interest particularly in sort of mining and resource stocks that are listed in London that US investors would like access to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the U.S., we have this concept of the self-directed investor. It's a retail investor, but it's a tremendous amount of money that they put to work specifically in things like mining resources, battery metals. Those are just hot sectors right now, and so much of that money goes into junior miners and resource stocks. And so to be able to access that is really important. And to your point, right, there is tax incentives from different types of investors, where we're being able to access companies that are in the UK that are probably, as I said, at a discount to some of the things they're investing in from Canada or Australia, is a great opportunity.
And through the OTC, are they able to take part in, we would call them placings, fundraisings when a company's looking to raise money?
There are ways to do it. What makes us a little different than New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ is a company isn't doing a full-blown offering of securities, an IPO, if you will. But the companies that are traded on our market can avail themselves of private placements, Reg D, those types of financing in the U.S.
Okay. And aside from, let's say, perhaps the bigger names that many investors will know who would like exposure to, big companies, big resource stocks, for example, how does the OTC help to sort of tell the story of the smaller junior resource stocks and help market that to the US investors to show them, here, look, there's quite a compelling opportunity here?
Well, part of the services that we offer for our corporate clients, right, is a suite of things like we do video series and we do virtual investor conferences. The companies can come here and do investor days and use our offices. Through our website, they can upload video presentations. We do podcasts, we do videos, we do conferences. So there's a number of things in the U.S. that we do to kind of help them promote their story. I have a team of people that works for me on our client relationship side that's helping them navigate, what conferences should you go to, where should you spend your time in the U.S. So they're not listing and being left alone here. We do help them support their story. And again, we have a client here today, and that's part of what we do.
And you'll be, of course, helping Guardian Metals telling their story to the US investors.
Exactly.
Okay. Anything you can give us, any hints of any other sort of dual listings, IPOs to come from sort of UK resource stocks?
Well, I can't give you names, obviously, until they go live, but we do have a strong pipeline, and we continue to see companies, primarily AIM and the junior kind of LSE-listed companies. Again, they see the opportunity in the U.S. They see that they're trading at a discount. They see that the traditional UK investor is different than the traditional US investor and the opportunity that brings specifically in the resource mining sector. So the pipeline is deep and we will see more. We recently did Sarabi Gold. We've done Union Jack Oil. We had Endeavor Resources. These are companies that have joined within the last month or two. Right. All have seen tremendous growth in terms of their home market liquidity and their North American ownership. So we're really proud of that.
Excellent. Would you say you're seeing an interest in companies wanting that dual listing from the UK?
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, it's a strong market for us.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Jason Peltrovich, for your time today. I'm hoping this is not my last time here at the OTC, hoping to come and cover some more listings from our audience who'd like to follow different stocks in the sector. But thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for flying over, and you're always welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm now going to bring in Oliver Friesen, so thank you, Jason. If Oliver is around, I just want to get a few words with Oliver. Hey, Oliver.
Mark, how are we doing?
I'm very good. How are you?
I was listening. I heard that you can see the Empire State Building.
No, the Statue of Liberty.
Oh, Statue of Liberty. There it is.
Not quite the Empire State, not quite the Empire State Building.
Okay,
but yeah, there is Liberty Island, isn't it? Yeah, the Empire State Building. Yeah.
There it is. Very nice.
So I'm just going to grab my phone here because I know there were some questions that were sent in from investors.
Absolutely.
But before we get into those questions. How are you feeling, first of all, to be here in New York? Here, I mean, we're just looking at the screen there. You can see the ticker. We will change camera angles in a moment. Yeah. There's the company's ticker. There's the company's logo. You're about to ring the bell.
Well, it's a bit of a pinch me moment, if I'm being completely honest. I mean, I remember 2 years ago, really, obviously really challenging time in the market. And even getting this listing away in London was such a challenge. It was, it took much longer than we anticipated. Trying to convince people that what we were doing was real and that there was tremendous potential there. So that was 2 years ago, and now here we are. We've obviously had a lot of success with our UK listing, and now things are really happening in the US as well. So it's been great growth, and we're looking forward to the future as well. I think there's a lot of exciting things coming.
Good. Well, I did see a bit of an uptick recently in the share price. Maybe it's an anticipation of this event here today. Yeah. But you were listening to an interview there with Jason. How important is it for you to give US investors exposure to Guardian Metals stock? Because of course it is very much a US-focused resource company, isn't it? And defense is all strategically important.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we are, our focus is in the UK. That's our home listing. But as you mentioned and pointed out, we are a Nevada-focused company. And I think more important to that is the asset that we own in Pilot Mountain is important, really important for US national security. So for that reason, it's so important that we now really not shift focus too much, but really now start to emphasize the OTC listing that we have, and really trying to get this story out to the masses in the U.S. because it matters to U.S. citizens. So the great work that the OTC is doing, and this type of ceremony, and all the interviews and all that, it's important as we continue to really grow the narrative here in the U.S. where all of our operations are focused.
So you're going to be planning quite a bit of a marketing plan for the US?
Yeah, so I would say kind of year one, our focus was on creating a track record in the UK that was defensible, saying certain things, but then going out and doing them. I think we've certainly done that, and the UK market has taken notice. But now it's with kind of some really big catalysts potentially coming here for Pilot Mountain and for Guardian Metal. Now it's important that we really start to build this narrative in the US as well to kind of complement our UK listing.
Good. Well, let's just touch on some important news that came out earlier in the week. On Monday, I believe, you announced a significant update regarding the potential for large-scale porphyry-style mineralization at Pilot Mountain.
Yeah.
Of course, the last time we spoke, the last bit of news, you announced that discovery of the mineralized porphyry, and you'd engaged Dr. Lawrence Carter to do a review. And Monday, of course, that review coming out, the core review of that, further confirming that you did intersect the porphyry, and Dr. Carter's review indicating that the system architecture could be larger than expected. It was a big RNS. There was lots of technical info in it. I've seen some questions, people saying they would like one of your videos again to digest that, but it was a very comprehensive review. I mean, what was the crux of it from your point of view, and of course your discussions with Dr. Carter?
Yeah, and just on that, I mean, I normally would have done one of my detailed kind of walkthroughs. I've been just on the road. I was in Pennsylvania, I think, as I mentioned, with GTP, our potential offtake partners. So just couldn't find the time, unfortunately. So maybe I'll do that when I get back home to London next week. But yeah, I think the real takeaway there is this potential size of the system. When we first acquired this project, really the focus had been over the last 30, 40 years, and really since the inception of the project, was on these at-surface tungsten skarn deposits, right? And obviously a ton of value there, and especially with tungsten and the defense requirements of that metal, there's a ton of value there, and that's one of the main things that we're doing is pushing that forward, continue to de-risk that, looking to tap into potential funding sources through the U.S. government. So that's a huge focus of what we're doing. But being an exploration geologist myself and someone who's spent 15 years exploring, drilling, looking for porphyry systems, we took a bit of a step back to say, okay, maybe there's a lot more here than originally or previously known, and sure enough, that continues to be the case. And Dr. Carter, he was a fantastic person to bring in to do this work. He's really focused his career in the Yarantine district. So he knows that particular geological belt probably better than anyone else, and in particular with a focus on porphyry systems. So I would say that the biggest takeaway from that is the system appears to be much bigger than we originally knew about. Even kind of every week almost, as we're continuing to do more research and collect more data, we continue to find really encouraging signs. So the size is looking really encouraging, and now we need to go and drill more of these targets and really see what's down there. Obviously the first drill hole confirmed what we were seeing at surface, but now it's what really starting to expand here and looking at other parts of this property that have never been drilled before ever, and that's really exciting.
Well, I did see a tweet from Paul Johnson. Of course, people will be familiar with Paul Johnson, of course, Power Metal Resources, who's involved with a lot of the projects with Guardian Metals. I think he said that the target was bigger than the Empire State Building, which is quite fitting considering that we are here in New York.
Yeah.
So I noticed that the other day. But it's a couple of other points from that RNS. You said that molybdenite geochronological study is underway.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What is that for?
Yeah, so that's one of the bullets that I'm sure a lot of people just kind of glossed over and went, why do I care about this? This is actually really important. And the reason being, when I'll just speak more broadly, major mining companies who typically are the ones who express interest in porphyry deposits, that's really what most major mining companies are after right now, are these porphyries, because they're the ones that are going to be the supply of these really important metals like copper in the future. So porphyry deposits is what they're after, and their teams are so technical, and the age of these intrusions is a huge and important piece of the puzzle. So the average investor probably looks at that and goes, I don't really care about that. But what we've done, and with Dr. Carter's help, is taking samples from different parts of that drill hole, that have seen different differing amounts of alteration and mineralization. And what that means is we can now go away once those results come in and piece together the actual story and the timeline of the formation of this porphyry. And these are the kind of things that major mining companies, they require. What is the age? Give me the full chronological makeup of this kind of mineralized body that you're going after. So, like I said, it's not a super kind of sexy piece of news, that in particular, but for us and for our technical team, we're going, hey, we need this to really start to understand the system, and will help guide us where we need to go next.
Okay, perfect. That makes a lot of sense. Yes, you're almost readying up to sort of have that data room ready.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Get
okay.
it all kind of ready to go, and in a way that they're going to want to say, okay, this is what we need to see. Here it is on a silver platter, and then kind of go from there. So.
And you've also staked another 16 claims as well. So again, you must be feeling confident.
Yeah, our staking crews have been busy. I think we've staked probably north of 10 times in the last, call it 12, 13 months now. So I mean, the great thing about Nevada is, if you have a good kind of technical team and an operations team and staking team, you can go out and acquire new ground. And obviously that's much, much cheaper than going out and acquiring that ground or paying someone who previously owns it. So, we've done a lot of really good work, and our technical team has done a fantastic job taking all the data sets in and then figuring out, okay, the system actually is a lot bigger, but where do you go? You got to figure out, it still is expensive to stake claims, and the ongoing cost to keep those in good standing is expensive. So we need to make sure that we have confidence in the areas that we're staking. So we've actually now staked further claims to the south twice now, because we collect more data and we're going, oh, it actually shows that it's going to extend here, and there's evidence that the system kind of extends in this direction. And sure enough, with some further research and data that Dr. Lawrence collected, we're going, oh, it's actually looks like it's even bigger. So we need to go and stake that ground and make sure that we own 100% of it. Because as we continue to grow here and drill this system out, we don't want anyone to come in there and kind of start to take pieces that would be a nuisance to us in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And you're also planning next stage drilling. Dr. Carter's working on that right now.
Yes, yeah. That's as soon as I leave here, actually, we got a few calls to kind of go through some of that stuff. So all the data sets are now in, and now it's about figuring out where we want to go next. It's a big system, and as we discussed, but we got to figure out where we want to go next, and that's the next few drill holes. I think if we do it right, so it could certainly be really, really exciting. So what we need to do now is just have a few more calls with the full kind of broad technical team, and then figure out where those next pads need to go. Then we very quickly go in and we file what's called an amendment for our notice, and then that usually takes kind of 2 to 3 weeks, and then we're authorized to go and drill those holes. So there's a lot of drilling we're doing in the meantime. We're not stopping drilling by any means, but it's about getting those next drill holes ready in the pipeline.
Almost maybe a continuous pipeline of drilling.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly
Okay.
that. Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
Yeah.
US grant funding. How are you on with that? Or also maybe Department of Defense interest as well, because I know you're very close to. Was it the munitions manufacturing area? Was it in the area? Or
Well, yeah, no. So just quickly on that. So part of this tour that I'm doing right now, I was able to stop into GTP, so Global Tungsten and Powders. Their processing ATP plant is in Towanda, Pennsylvania. So that's about 3.5 hours away from here. So part of this tour, I was actually funny enough, drove all the way here to New York from Towanda. So it was the first time I've actually ever been to that facility. And really, I was blown away by the size and scale of what they're doing. I mean, Towanda itself is a relatively small town, and the facility itself, it almost feels like it kind of takes up the whole town. And I didn't realize that it's actually the biggest APT plant outside of China. So they're processing a lot of tungsten concentrate, a lot of tungsten scrap, and producing usable kind of tungsten products. So it was great to go through the factory, meet some of our partners there, and just understand the process a little bit better. But more importantly, just to talk about longer term how we can continue to partner together and build this relationship as owners of the largest undeveloped tungsten project on U.S. soil. So that was sort of the reason for that site visit. It was really a kind of a strategy session and discussing some of those things that I mentioned. Grant funding, obviously, I can't say too much. I think you've asked me a few times on that.
I'll keep asking you.
Yeah, I know. And I certainly our investors ask as well. What I can say, and we put out some news, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, from the Air Force Senate Committee meeting minutes that were released, and really just reading through that document, it was very clear how much of a focus is on tungsten and antimony specifically. And that obviously is really exciting news for us with the project that we own 100% of. So I think those two metals are really a focal point for the use cases that they have within the military. So we're still encouraged. We continue to advance conversations. I can't say too much, obviously at this stage, but we're in a really unique position, and I think the main takeaway should be that this asset is really, we believe, to be really important for U.S. national security, and there's not many companies in that similar position.
Okay, good. Well, I think we've got just a few more minutes before we are doing the countdown. So if I can just go through, of course, questions from investors. It's very important that we let them know that we're out here. So it's very important. Well, I've got you to go. So I'll just read them as they've come in, and if you can just answer them, as you can. So the first one I have is, as you continue to stake further claims adjacent to the Pilot Mountain project, is there anything preventing other companies from staking the remaining land surrounding you, or is there some kind of first right of refusal? Porphyry systems are massive. Essentially, I'd like to know, how are you balancing ensuring you capture the entire potential system against not wanting to stake out Nevada in its entirety?
I mean, I'd love to stake out Nevada in its entirety if I could, because it's a fantastic state and there's so much mineral wealth there. But no, it's a great question. I think that there is no right of first refusal. Anyone could come and stake up to our boundary if they wanted to. So we always keep that in mind. And as someone who's worked in Nevada for more than 10 years, I understand how to balance that risk and making sure that we acquire the ground that we ultimately need. So obviously, we are in possession of the most data for this project. So when data comes in, before we release it, so we're in that sort of interpretation phase, I would say. It's within our gift if we want to go and stake before we put out any news. And obviously, when we put out bits of news, certain maps we might include in certain maps that we'll keep to ourselves for that reason. So we're very thoughtful about that particular risk. Absolutely, it's the reason we've staked so many times. But as you mentioned, we don't want to go and stake all of Nevada because that's expensive. So we do it in chunks. We have a really good relationship with our stakers. So if I phone them up and say, hey guys, we have some staking that needs to be done, usually within a couple of days, they'll be on site. So for instance, Dr. Carter did his work, walked the ground and saw some things that he thought were really interesting, which showed that the potential grew in a certain direction. So on the back of that, we phone up our guys. They're on site within a few days staking the claims, and that's kind of how we manage that. And then when we put out the RNS covering the kind of the porphyry update and the exciting developments there, we also include, we've also staked this ground. And so we're making sure that we're covering the ground that we think is necessary. So we feel like we're in a really good position. As you mentioned, porphyries are big systems, but we've staked additional ground multiple times to make sure that we're covering the growing footprint of that system.
Okay, thank you.
Well, great question.
Yeah, good question. So the next one I've got is, I'd be very interested to understand the plan with assays in relation to batches or individual, and if we see a risk of a land grab by others given the clear potential around Pilot Mountain.
Yeah, so the strategy there around kind of batching, it's my view on it is good to batch assays in some respect. There's some companies who will put out one press release at the start of the program and say, we've started drilling, and then 6 months later, here's the full list of assays. That's not how we do things at Guardian Metal. We want to make sure our investors are more in the loop as to what's going on. But I think it's important just to kind of reiterate that there's a lot going on with drilling. 24/7, we have crews on right now, we're currently drilling. And we have a large team in Nevada currently working. So there's a lot of moving parts. And what that means is we need to kind of give things the adequate amount of time and we need to really understand them ourselves before we go out and say something. So for instance, with that, the first porphyry drill hole that we completed, we had to really understand what we were looking at and do a full detailed review of that core before we could go out and say anything. So when it comes to assays, certainly they'll come in batches. It won't be sort of one drill hole. Also, just the time commitment to put together an RNS for drilling results is very time consuming. And to take that data and put together the tables, one RNS probably takes 8 hours to actually put together when you factor in all the data and how you kind of organize that in the QA, QC. So to do one for each hole would just be too much work. And not that we're afraid of work, but it's time commitment, right? And I need to make sure that the guys that are involved with that are also focused on other bits. So some level of batching, I would say a couple holes typically put together and then put out is probably our thesis on that.
Okay, good. I think we've got probably 5 minutes, and I've got about 5 questions. So if you can, let's fire them off. So, is the grant funding? We've kind of touched on this, but is the grant funding for pilot mounting awaiting PFS prior to any award being given?
I need to be really careful about anything grant funding related. Yeah. But the PFS is we're probably about 12 months away from a PFS. So what we're looking to do and what we're asking for ultimately is funding to help us complete that PFS. That's our goal is to help get help, ultimately financial help to help those work streams, because they are expensive, but they're really important. So no, it's not awaiting a PFS, but in terms of kind of anything else grant related, obviously I can't really say much at this stage.
Okay, yeah, no problem. And you've covered the next question as well, the timeline for PFS, so you've touched on that. And I think the next question as well, request a video to explain. You say you're going to do that when you get back, so...
Yeah, I'll put it on my list now. It will probably come sometime next week, if I'm being honest. There's just a lot in the next few days here, but... it's an important RNS, and I think having a bit more context would be helpful. So I'll put that on my list and try to get that done next week.
Excellent. I can look forward to that. So
another thing for me to do. There you go.
Busy man. Tungsten is the main driver of the pilot mounting project, but which mineral out of tungsten, copper, silver, gold, zinc, molybdenum, and garnet do you envisage making the greatest financial contribution?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say probably the most interest from the broader mining space would be probably in the copper and the silver. In terms of kind of the breakdown of the revenue streams, I mean, you can run the numbers and see what the in situ metal value is, and then what copper, silver, and zinc account for that. Copper and silver are quite close in terms of sort of being second. Garnet is an interesting one, and we're doing the work now to really understand that opportunity a bit better. Early numbers indicate it could be quite material, and we need to figure out how that would fit into the flow sheet. But yeah, copper and silver are the ones that I think most investors and mining companies know and are looking for. But the garnet, there's some interesting work going on there. So we'll see what comes of that, and we'll find out what the potential is there. But it looks like it could be really interesting.
Okay, excellent. Two more questions. Okay. Considering that more is known of the makeup of the ore body, will further metallurgical studies be required in order to extract maximum mineral streams and therefore capture the full economic benefit?
So when it comes to the skarns in particular, the metallurgical work has been done to almost a PFS standard. So when it really comes to the tungsten, which is the metal of most importance, the metallurgical work is quite advanced there. So what we sort of do now is what's called optimization. So when it comes to, as you mentioned, the copper, the silver, and the zinc, how do those fit into the flow sheet? So what we run is sort of these trade-off processes, which is, okay, if we take out the copper and zinc at this stage, how does that affect the recovery of the tungsten? So we understand to a very advanced sort of level the metallurgical studies and the results of that. But now it's sort of these trade-off studies where we can tinker with the flow sheet and figure out if we bring this up to this certain level, does it affect everything else? So it's mostly just trade-off and optimization now, changing the grind sizes and seeing if we can get a bit more recovery out of that. So we're really confident and happy with the results so far. And now we just optimize it for a PFS and try to extract the max value possible.
Okay, excellent. And the final question I have here, the published size of the resource at Desert Shielite is well known. If all the undrilled skarns and porphyry systems prove to be mineralized, what magnitude of increase could be possible? I'm thinking it could be in the 100s, not the 10s. Would my assumption be crazy?
So the last part I won't comment on. That could certainly get me in trouble. What's the potential there? I mean, in terms of published potential, the previous owner did an exploration upside sort of study. That was a third-party report that was published. Their base case was sort of a doubling of the in-ground resource at Desert Shielite, so from, call it 13 million tons to I think about 25 million tons. And their optimistic scenario was sort of a 3x, so that gets you up to kind of just below 40 million tons. That was the results that they put together. So I can speak about those because they've been published, and that was sort of third-party signed off. What's the actual potential? We just need to drill and find find out. Porphyry systems, can be quite large, so we'll see what comes of that, and we'll continue to drill that. And obviously, the first drill hole was really encouraging and exciting. And now with the data in hand, it's about going and drilling those next holes, which we hope will be equally, if not more, exciting. So, what the potential is there, I'll just kind of comment on what's published, but it's important for investors to know, and people who watch the story, is we're not just a development company. We're not just focused on the PFS and development of the in-ground resource at Desert Shielite. Being a geologist, we've taken a step back, and every time we continue to kind of peel the layers of the onion back, we continue to find more and more. And just having Dr. Carter on site walking around, he's going, wait, how has no one ever seen this before? This is at surface porphyry mineralization and alteration. So we continue to do that work, and that exploration work will continue. So we're always looking to find ways to expand the resource, expand the property, and we'll continue to do that, and that'll be an important part of our narrative going forward.
Excellent. Well, you've got to do a countdown and ring the bell. So we'll move into the other room and we'll open the markets. But thank you very much, Oliver.
Yeah, fantastic. And thanks for coming all the way to New York. I mean, Stockbox has been a great partner for us in the UK, obviously, since we listed, and really helped us get our story out. And to have you here in New York, I think it really signals, we'll continue to work together and hopefully grow the US narrative as well, alongside the UK work, which you guys are doing, which is fantastic. So I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I do appreciate you inviting us as well. It's great to be here in New York, but let's go and ring a bell.
Let's do it. Fantastic.
Start smiling and clapping.
Well done, Oliver. How do you feel?
That bell was loud. My ears are ringing a little bit there.
Give us a bit of an idea of what's to come. US investors and, of course, UK investors. What news is coming?
Yeah, no, a few times people have come on Twitter and said, is it going to be a real quiet summer for Guardian Metal Resources, as a lot of companies kind of take the summer off. Not the case here. We're drilling right now in Nevada. There's a lot of news coming, so it's going to be super busy. Drill results, obviously, a lot of other potential catalysts and commercial updates. So a really busy next couple, probably 3 to 6 months here, and then moving into 2025. So it should be a really exciting time.
Well, thank you so much, Oliver. Thank you, everyone from the OTC, for having us here. It's a great first experience for Stockbox to be at the bell ringing opening. Yeah. Everyone, stay tuned on Stockbox for all the developments from Guardian Metal Resources. But for now, in New York, thank you very much. Okay.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like, or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.